Simplification of N1LN. We'll get Lori a little time here to switch over from the agenda to the presentation. And let me talk a little bit about what this means. When we first got done building this station, I gave a presentation, and I believe I gave the presentation to DFMA. Never gave it to OCRA. So at that time, it was the building of NC4KW. That's my contest call. I put that in place when I still lived in Texas. Why? Well, I was moving to North Carolina. So NC4KW, North Carolina, 4 kilowatts. My QRP is 1500 watts. Okay, so it lines up with the call quite well, all right? Well, notice this one is the N1LN power project. I rarely use NC4KW anymore. And you'll see when we get to the next slide why we don't. So Lori, if you go to the next slide. Okay, and I'm sorry, these aren't numbered. Everybody should be following it anyway. There's nobody looking at the presentation at home. All right, so originally, DXing, contesting, and casual QSOs were the goals. I don't want to do anything, first of all, without some kind of a goal. Because if you start out without a goal, how do you know you accomplish what you went out to do? Okay, I've had, trying to catch up with Dan, I never will, but I've got pages of diagrams, okay, about where the towers are going to be, where the guy wires are going. Make sure they're not going to point at each other when I'm running Japan and Europe. Too much stuff for this presentation. So we simplified it to, I wanted DX, contest, and casual QSO. But thank you, Dan, you'd like those slides. I want to operate both CW and sideband. Okay, I still do, but primarily CW and almost 100% HF. So I did have a much larger selection of antennas for VHF and UHF than I do now. But I'm almost 100% HF, except for the repeater. That's really about my, only VHF or UHF work. Operating positions. Well, when I built the station, I built a multi-operator station because we didn't have this thing called COVID. We built it 14 years ago. Everybody was
This meeting is being recorded.
Really interested in going someplace for 48 hours because we built a room in the house with bunk beds. That's our bunkhouse. We've designed the house so there's a bathroom right outside the operating shack with a shower. Okay, so we've got a section of the house designed for hosting 48-hour contests. Well, move the calendar ahead. People get older. Nobody wants to play for 48 hours. And then with COVID, nobody wants to play together. All right. So, 2 workable operating positions for multi. Okay, stop for a minute. Okay, folks on Zoom, the team is working on the display, and we will stop. I can talk, right? Okay. All right, so we had 2 operating positions. They were identical because you don't want to have to train people every time they might get up from their sleeping time and they might go on station 2 versus station 1. You want them to be able to just sit right down and do whatever they need to do on whatever station they're sitting in front of. They're also identical for me because I've got to maintain it all. So they were completely identical, right down to the headset, the bandpass filters. Of course, they both were K3s, both ACOM 2000A auto-tune amplifiers. Everything was completely identical. But enter COVID and people not wanting to travel, I no longer need to have 2 operating positions. So I reconfigured it so I only need 1 operating position now. And the way I configured it is for something called single op to radio. If any of you are familiar with that, essentially I took my second operating position, which was over on the right, moved everything over to the left and had both of the K3s pointing at me, both of the amplifiers pointing at me, the rotors, you'll see all of that. So everything now is within reach of me when I'm sitting there. And the software that I run for contesting, I run 2 keyboards. Left keyboard for the left radio, right keyboard for the right radio. So I'm running 2 radios at once, right radio, right ear, left radio, left ear. Okay, so no longer do we need to worry about what's the other guy doing, because the other guy is the right side or the left side of my body. So total reconfiguration of the station. I'm sorry? It would be good, except you can't run both radios. You can't transmit on both radios at once. Okay, so there are lockouts. So one is listening, one is talking. Goes flips back and forth. Is it working? Okay. So folks on Zoom, we think it's working. Maybe shoot us a thumbs up. Okay, excellent. Okay, so the single op to radio, multi-single. Okay, well, that was, multiple radios with multiple people with one radio. Maybe, but we only did that in the 160 contest. So I haven't even been able to get people over for that. Okay, and of course, multi too. So now single op with SO2R. All right, I also configured it so because we had people coming over to the house from the various clubs, mostly PVRC, Potomac Valley Radio Club, because they're all contesters. I mean, when they heard I was moving here and building the station, they couldn't wait to get me into the club to come over and help me, build antennas and stuff. Okay, but we've also had folks from OCRA and DFMA over to the house working. And then here's the big one. Bruce got older too. So when we built this, Lori and I built the entire station, all 4 towers. Okay, Dan was up on the top of the 40-meter tower with me when we put the top couple sections and the guy wires on it. Okay, but with the exception of that, Lori and I built all 4 towers, did all the guy wire work, we dug all the holes, we mixed all the cement, we did the whole thing. And then we had people come over. Dee was over a couple of times, helping with some antennas. Maybe some of the rest of you were. He's been over quite a bit, working on stuff after that during the simplification project. Okay, but the main thing here is we were self-maintenance. So I spent weeks, days per week at 105 feet on one tower or another one with connections and coax and rotors and stack matches and relays. And, minimize or eliminate climbing. Okay, the goal was to get it done by the time I turned 70, all right, which was convenient because I turned 70 just before COVID hit. So, and I needed help to get it done, and I did. I got it done in like October of 1970, that's 2020. So it's almost, before the COVID thing hit that. Okay, next page. So here's kind of where we started. You can see 3 towers here. But the thing to look at, if you can see it on the screen, is each tower has a stack of Yagis on it. Okay, these are single band towers, well, almost. This tower here is 40 meters and 10 meters. This tower here is 15 meters. This tower here is 10 meters. I had phased verticals for 160, phased verticals for 80, and an inverted V for 80. And then I've got 10 receive antennas, which I still have. But point being, a lot of stuff to keep this working. So that was the starting point. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do is cover one tower at a time. So here's the 20-meter tower. And I hope that's clear enough. You can see it, maybe. So a 20-meter tower was 105 feet. That's the tallest of my towers. 3 of them were 105 feet. Why is that? Well, I'd like to say because I looked at the detailed engineering and based on takeoff angle of the 3 antennas in the tower, that would optimize it. Now, I didn't want to climb any higher. When you're climbing up and down 105 feet a few times a day, you get tired pretty damn fast. And also, I'm not afraid of heights, but I respect heights. And I know I'd be just as dead from 105 than 150, but I'd be tireder when I got to 150. So that was 105. So we had 3 4-element monoband antennas at 36 feet, 64 feet, and 105 feet. And with the controllers, and this is the same with any tower, so I'll explain it once. Each one of the towers had what's called a stack match on it. So you can pick either one of the antennas, either 2 of the antennas, bottom and top, middle and top, middle and bottom, bottom, middle, or top, or all 3 of the antennas at once. So why would you do that? Well, let's roll back to what I said I didn't do. Optimize takeoff angle, optimize gain, okay? If you pick all 3 antennas at the same time, you optimize your gain in the direction they're pointing. It doesn't add, but it does increase the gain. And it also increases front to back. So if you're building a contest station, you want to be the loudest signal. So gain is one reason. Another reason is diversification. So if I want to have the top antenna pointed at Europe and the middle antenna pointed at Japan or somewhere else, I can pick top and middle, and I can point in two directions at one time. So the way this was designed was to, by moving a fewest number of switches, maximum functionality. Okay, all gone. So what did we do? We took all the antennas off. We sold all the antennas. We took all the rotors off, sold the rotors. We took the stack match off, sold the stack match, and we turned that tower into a 160 meter vertical. And that also means we got rid of the phased verticals. Okay, so all of that now is a 160 meter vertical. And then you see this little box here? Go back to the red line, red words on the first slide, minimize or eliminate climbing. That's my matching network. It's 1 foot off the ground. Okay, it has a relay in it. You'll see on the next slide, I believe, or very soon, you know, what the purpose of that relay is. Vacuum relay, excuse me, a vacuum variable, a fixed back capacitor, and a relay. But, you know, the hard part of that was radios. It's on the ground. So I have not had to climb that tower. And Pete, you were there the day we finished it, actually, since we put the capacitor hat up on top of it. That's the last time I've been up that tower, and that was 3.5 years ago, something like that. So it's working. Next slide. So here's the radials. You take the two prongs off of your tractor, and it might look like that tractor is maybe giving you some kind of a comment, okay? But if you go backwards and you drag it behind you, you put a trench in the ground, okay? So every single radial was put in one at a time. And there are 65-ish, somewhere in the mid-60s, radials averaging at 100 feet long. So there's a lot of wire in the ground. But where did I get the wire? Well, I got rid of the rotors. I got rid of the stack matches. That was all 8-conductor wire. Strip the insulation off, and you've got a lot of long pieces of wire when you get rid of the wrapping and stuff, individual pieces of wire. And they were 120 to 150 foot long. So I had it. Next page. Here's what it looked like. This is taken from the top of the 40-meter tower, the one that Dan helped me finish. That's what it looked like when I got done. And here's, you know, the next year. They're all gone. Okay, so they're not there anymore. Easy to mow, no problem from the ground. Next slide. And I don't own a tuner. So all of my residents better be resonant on the frequencies that I want to use them on. And as I said, there's one relay in that matching box, and that will shift the design frequency from 1825 up to like 1885. So here's the SWR sweeps, and this is 1.4 to 1. So if you come into 160 meters on the low end of CW, you can see where it is right up through 1850s, about the high end of CW, maybe a little higher for the contest. And if you want to run sideband, you're still there. So one switch on my operating position, and now I've got a 160 meter vertical with a lot of radios, and this thing works great. And CQ Worldwide last year, I think they worked 73 countries or something like that. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on. We'll explain that in more. It's a question mark pointing at a location on the tower. So this was the 40 meter and 10 meter tower. Again, magic height, 105 feet, okay? I had two 40 meter beams, 2 over 2. So here's one right here at 68 feet. Here's the other one at 120, because this mast, it's a chrome alloy, 1/4 inch thick, very heavy steel mast, you know, allows me to raise that well above the top of the tower. So that's 40 meters and that's 40 meters. And then for 10 meters, I had a 10 element log periodic. I'm not sure if you folks are familiar with log periodics, but I like them. I really do like them, and I still have that as part of the station. That was at 106 feet, 4 element 10 meter at 72, and then a 3 element tribander at 36. The lower antennas on every tower were pointed at South America. Because if you're operating contest and you get South Americans calling, you don't want to wait for that rotor to go around. Turn the switch, you're there, turn it back, and it's done. Okay, contesting is fast, it has to be fast. So everything here came off. The tower shrunk to 64 feet with the 10 element log at 65, because it's a foot over it, and then the 3 element tribander at 34 feet. Here now it's fixed, no rotor. So there is a rotor. This is the first rotor now in the rebuild. So rotors went off the 20-meter tower. One rotor on here now on this new tower. And then this antenna is fixed at 280 degrees. So for continental US, I can point still in two directions, northwest, and then I can rotate the other one for northeast. Okay, so let's go to the next page and we'll talk about the finger here pretty soon. This is Lori. I took this from the top of the tower so you get an idea of what it looks like when I'm up there. And this is me. Lori took this from the bottom while we're putting up this is during the original build, okay? Because there's grass there now, but this is when we first built the station, just so you can get an idea of what we actually look like when we're up to the top of the tower. It's only 100 feet. It's crazy people used to go up to the top of the 1,200-foot tower where our repeater is. Not me. Sure.
When you're on the side of the 100-foot tower, having on your harness, and you're on the side of the tower, not inside the tower, I actually felt more comfortable going up the repeater tower. It's 10 times the height. If it brought you down, that was always if you had to go prepared to climb out.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good point. I've never been up that tower, but I've been on rotating restaurants. Okay, and I don't like them. When you walk over to the side and the fence is right there, I'm walking around the inside of the thing, kind of looking over. Okay, next slide. Okay, why was that question mark there? For the first time in my life, I scared the hell out of myself and my wife when I was working on the tower at 105 feet. Remember that mast I was telling you about? That 1/4-inch thick chrome alloy mast that weighs 205 pounds. I was in the process of trying to lower it down. And I built this jig kind of thing. And I had a jack, and I would put the jack under it and tighten and loosen a bunch of things and get ready and then let the mast come down. Well, this thumb got stuck right in there. Okay, and a bit, yeah. The question for those on Zoom was that they've asked if it hurt. Yes, it did. It hurt a lot. It hurt more than what it looks like, I'll tell you that. But I panicked because here we are. Now we're in Zoom. We're in COVID now. Okay. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I'm stuck at 105 feet. I'm going to get firemen over here. What are they going to do? At 105 feet. We don't have hook and ladders. And if we did, they're not going to get it down our street. We live in the middle of nowhere. So fortunately, I had the presence of mind that I still had my ratchet in my hand. First, I didn't let go of it. I tightened up everything I could. I jacked up the jack to get some of the pressure off, just enough so I could actually rotate the mast, because this is a thrust bearing. This is what keeps the rotation under control. Rotated the mast, and I got my thumb out. I was done for a few days until I figured out a better way to do that. But I talked to my nephew, and being the sensitive person he said, just put ice on it. So here I am with my thumb all wrapped up, having thank God I made it through that day, black velvet and water, alcohol, absolutely. But if you look closely, you'll see ice cubes in the glass. So I put significant quantity of ice on it after that. Okay, next tower, next slide. Okay, the next tower was a little shorter, 95 feet, and should have been 105. I had the tower section to go to 105, but when I was putting this up, to Dan's point, I probably do this the wrong way and I would never do it again. I went up to 35 feet, put on guy wire. Went up to 70 feet, put on guy wires. It was, the Roan 45s, and I went all the way up to 105, put on guy wires. This is Roan 25. So if you've ever been on Roan 25, it is nowhere near as strong as Roan 45. So when I got the 95 feet, I said, there's no way in hell. Yeah, I'm doing one of these. I said, there's no way in hell I'm going any higher. Lori, send me the top section. Because she was doing all of it. She's driving the truck and pulling all the sections up to me. And I'm putting them on and moving the gin pole up. We're done. Just send me the top section next. So this one stayed at 95. But this one had 3 15-meter monoband beams, each one 5 elements, 95, 65, and 35. And again, the top 2 rotated, The bottom one was pointed at South America. So what did we do there? Well, sold all the Yagis. So they all came down and were sold, and we brought the tower down, and we also sold the tower. And here's where we flip to a video, hopefully.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, there we go. All right. So here's some pictures of this tower before it comes down. All the antennas are off. We're ready to take the tower down, and there's a collection of us. There's the base, and here's the motley crew on their way out. And this is me with Bill Sawzall cutting off the base. And Lori's going to be jumping ahead here. So I'm making a few cuts, partially cutting the far legs, and I will be cutting the near leg, because it'll when it goes down, it will fall to the right-hand side. Okay, so we've got all of that done, and we're kind of looking around and making sure everybody knows where to run, because we're going to have people at each of the guy wire posts. You know, Wilson's going out to his, and Dan's at his, and Howie, and Pete and I, you'll see us very shortly. We're at the back one, and I'm cutting the final leg now. Got cut, I ran, and now Pete and I will be removing the guy wires from the final post. Note there's only two. We've already taken the top guy off. They were the longest, and we didn't want to get them tangled up. So Pete and I are pulling on the guy wires, taking out the bolts and nuts. You'll see shortly, I grab the guy wire. Pete, make sure I don't lose the bolt and nut, goes over and puts it in the wheelbarrow. Thanks, Pete. We sold all this stuff. Okay, so the guy wire is gone. Watch. Okay, it's selective tree planting. Sorry. Okay, so the guy wire is now gone, and the tower went down. You'll see it again, I think, here. If not, we can go backwards, because I was standing in the way here. Okay, watch it. There it goes, going down, and a soft landing planted in the right location, trees. Okay, very good, excellent. All right, so what did we do now? Well, it's still attached to the base. Okay, so bring on the handy little Kubota. Everybody ought to have one of those if they don't. And Wilson said, well, let's put it in the bucket on the Kubota, and we'll tie it real tight with straps. And then it's certainly not going to push the Kubota. So we tied it all up really tight, cut the base for the final bit, and then lifted it up. And I slowly backed the Kubota up. And the guys were on the guy wires, keeping them, off to the sides as best they could. And you'll see me, you'll see Wilson come back in the picture here pretty soon, and he'll tell me to stop, because there's a come along. There you go, stop. There's a come along that I was dragging the handle on the ground. I had to lift the tractor up a little more, but we kept going down slowly, and it looks like it's bent, but it's not. It shows it as bent, but no, not one single section had any damage to it when it came down. So, okay, Howie wants to get the last guy wire out of the way. Fortunately, did not go under the tower. And now I start driving forward a little bit shortly. Okay, and there we go. And the tower is down. And we took it apart.
This meeting is being recorded.
So when the 15-meter came down, it made way to add this next tower. And this is going to be pretty much the rest of the presentation. Back to the theory of I don't want to climb. Okay, so I was fortunate enough to be the recipient of an absolutely for free US Tower HDX 589. Unfortunate side of it is one of my really good friends passed away. And he was one of the guys that used to come over to the house all the time to operate. But his wife knew that Jamie, really enjoyed operating and offered me the tower if I would come over and get it out of the yard, gladly. Okay, so 5 sections, 89 feet, 2,800 pounds, very heavy. Next slide, please. And there it is. Okay, you have some likely people here. This is Wilson. This is, I think, Kaz, W4KAZ. but the thing isn't carried. Okay, how do we move it? All right, well, I got a few quotes. Next slide. Okay, so before we can move it, we've got to get it off the base. So I borrowed another Sawzall. That's a tool that I've got to buy, I think. Seems like I'm using somebody else's all the time. But Howie had 3/4-inch drive socket set. Fortunately, I now have the ones I need for the base of this. And Kaz, I bought Kaz about 3 dozen blades because it took a long time to cut the bolts because we couldn't get the bolts loosened up. But we got it split from the base. Next slide. And this is Wilson's suggestion. How about a rollback tow truck? Quotes I got for the tower to have the tower moved were absolutely ridiculous. But Wilson said, well, why don't we try a rollback tow truck and see if it would work? Next slide. And it certainly did. So the rollback tow truck to drive from just down the street here, because he's right near Route 40, okay, $300 to go over to Cary, back, drop it off at my house versus the lowest price of $1,500 for somebody else to do it. And that's it, all loaded up. We had a little bit of grass issue. Next slide, please, which you can see there. But that's all fixed also. The lady, she's the homeowner, nice lady. Grass is all fixed. And we did get the tow truck stuck. You can see the pull strap here, but one of the guys had a 4-wheel drive Jeep and it pulled the tow truck out. Next slide. And we're almost home. So I said we kind of live in the middle of nowhere. This is a current project I'm working on, the covered bridge. Long story, not want to go there, but yeah. But this is us, and Lori's taking a picture out of the back of the truck, almost home. Next slide, and it's there. Okay, so now we need to unload it. Next slide. And Wilson again brought some old carpet so we don't scratch the hell out of the galvanized steel. Wilson was on his game that day, I'll tell you what. Fantastic. And he's not on the Zoom call, unfortunately, tonight, but that's unfortunate because he really deserves a lot of kudos. And this is Howie's mast, kind of like the one that crushed my finger. That thing there, we brought it home on the tow truck. It's the only way we could get it home. It's so heavy and so long. Next page. Okay, it's done. Next page. Okay, now what? Okay, we've got almost 3,000 pounds of tower sitting there. You know, we probably need a hole. We probably need something to do with it. Next page. So there's the hole. So fortunately, again, I have the Kubota that I could only get 4.5 feet deep. The tower hole is 5 by 5 by 9. A lot of cement in 9 feet deep. Totally self-supporting. So I found a solution. Wrong. This damn bucket on the excavator was so big, he couldn't get it in the hole to get a grip on the dirt to pull it out. So he ended up cutting an angle until he ran into stone. See, this is all stone. He was solid stone. And he didn't want to damage his what are the fingers or whatever on the bucket. So he said, sorry, pay me anyway, sorry. So he left. But the real solution, and one of the people sitting in the back of the room here, next page, there we are. This is me in the hole, but thanks to Howie and Bill, we used the Kubota as best we could, kind of rounded the edges off, but we took turns in the hole, digging in the dirt, putting it in a bucket, bringing the bucket out. So, 5 by 5 by 9.5. Thank you, sir. Dig the hole one day. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was an afternoon. A few afterwards. Hold that question. Okay, next page. Okay, also, rebar. I've never done rebar before. Well, my Ace Tower crew over there never did either. But between Lori and I, we actually built this rebar cage for it. And you can see it's somewhat sophisticated. Okay, and I now know how to tie rebar. And what you need is a Kubota. And you need a Kubota with 2 real long crowbars that you can hook in the 4-to-1 bucket on the front of the Kubota to support this. If you don't have that, forget it. You can't build rebar. Next page. Okay, so finally, the rebar's in the hole, the base is level, and the framing is started. And I say started because Go back to that excavator. They dug down 4.5 feet where they had the ramp going up. To the point of Pete's question, how much cement? 10.25 yards is what it took. Okay, and I got a number in here, 45,000 pounds or something like that. But when you pour the cement, that much weight is going to blow the frame out. Next page, please. Nope, not going to happen. So I've got 2x10s, 2x12s, extra support there, rebar going into the ground. I custom cut the sides of it to the contour of the ground so the cement wouldn't go by. And even I wasn't even comfortable with that. Okay, next page. NT4D, Jamie's QSL. If anybody has ever put a tower in, okay, there's this, I don't know, myth or whatever, or this feeling, and you know, it used to be JA cards, and maybe it still is. You take JA cards from Japan, okay, and you bury them in the base before you pour the cement, because you know that's going to make the tower and the antennas work better. Okay, when that check around, check some old time hymns, and you'll find that to be at least factual statement, whether it does anything or not. Okay, and my old towers, I had, not only did I do that, in the 20-meter tower, I had JA1 through JA0 for 20 meters, 15 JA1 through JA0 for 15, 40 and 10, same thing, 40 and, you know, I had them all. So, but this tower got one card, Jamie's. So that was it. All right, it's a hole. Where's the cement? Everybody's admiring the hole with the coffee, waiting for the. So here we got Dan, Kaz, me, Holly, and Bill, the regular gang of N1LN tower crew. Okay, and thanks to the crew, and there's their names again, this job was pretty quick and easy. We took turns doing the various jobs. The guy with the cement truck did a fantastic job with how he was able to control it. Next page. And my concern about the dirt, I used the Kubota as the cement's going up. I kept backfilling the side, the open side. So the cement would come up and I'd stay right even with it, with the dirt as the cement went up. Next page. You see, we keep going. And then we had the 2x2s, which we actually use on Bill's tower also to get the air out of the cement. As the cement's coming up, just keep pounding it to get the air out of it. Keep going. Getting close. Getting closer. Okay, now we're done. So get out the trowel, smooth the surface, and time to take a break. Next page. And there we are. This was the side that I backfilled. So you can see I went right up to the top with the dirt. Next page. And there it is. And to your point, Pete, this is what we had left. Okay, I mean, it's amazing how little, because the guy went over and cleaned out his, you know, giant cement truck, and that's all the cement we have left. So, as I said, they're about a half a gallon. Okay, so now the cement, the hole is poured. How do I move the damn thing? I can't lift that with my Kubota. So I put tree trunks underneath it, lashed them with ratchet hooks to it, and I slid it like a sled. I'm doing this all by myself, by the way, so it makes it really fun. So I slid it like a sled roughly over to where I am. And then I started building a series of ramps with hydraulic jacks and come along, next page, until I finally got it in, got it bolted up, and then there it is. Next page. Then the fun stuff comes. Get the Kubota back out again, dig the trenches for the conduit, put in the coax, put in the polyphasers, okay, for both for the rotor and for both of the antenna feeds. Place for the coax to go when the tower goes up and down. Next page. Okay, tower's done, ready for the antenna. And I bought a JK mid-tri with 40 meters. 5 elements on 10, 4 on 15, 3 on 20, and 2 on 40. Now remember, I used to have individual towers for every band with 2 or 3 stacked antennas. So I wanted to get as many elements as I could, but it came at a cost, 180 pounds for that antenna. Next page. Another thing I bought from Jamie was Jamie's wife was the tilt plate, because back to the I don't want to work in the air. So when the tower goes horizontal, the weight of the antenna tilts the plate out, so the antenna stays parallel with the ground. So I can bring the tower all the way down, and the antenna will go out so I can work on it. Then when I bring the tower back up, then the antenna goes back to horizontal again. Next page. Except for one problem. When you add 40 meters to the JK mid-tri, it's no longer balanced. So Lori and I set up a little lead smelting project in the garage. And we happened to have an aluminum tube that was the right diameter. The ID of the aluminum was the same as the ID of the boom for the antenna. So we made a collection of these lead pieces that I hooked together, slid them in the end of the boom, tack them so they wouldn't move when the antenna is up there. And the amount of lead that I had and the amount of weight of the that I did to get in the antenna, it perfectly balanced. Because what I didn't want was when I'm going up with the tower tilting up, all the weight would be on the rotor if it's not balanced. And you got 180 pounds of torque on a rotor, you know, you don't want that. You want the thing to be locked in so that when it goes up, it's not going to try to turn. Next page. So it's done. It's vertical, down, and there it is at 83 feet. Should be 89, but somebody, I'm pointing at me for you folks on Zoom, cut the coax, and I didn't feel like replacing 170 feet of coax, so I had to shorten it a little bit. So now it only goes to 83 feet, but at 83, 89, I don't care. Next page. And here's the sweeps again. This is kind of noisy, the top one, but you know, the colored bands, this is 20 meters, and that's 2 to 1. So 20 meters, the maximum is 1.8, a little less than 1.4. No, that's one, this is 1.4, that's 1.8. So 15, and then 10, and then this is the 40 meter sweep here on the bottom. Now, the old tower with the 2 antennas, when I worked them together, I had a much broader band of 40 meters with an acceptable SWR. So actually, Lori and I brought it down again, and we adjusted the tips and moved the resonant frequency up. So I do mostly CW, and so it's not as good as I would like it in the low end of 40 meters, but it gives me a little bit more of 40 for sideband, for some compensation. Next page. Okay, so was it successful? I went from 4 towers, I still have 4 towers. The 4th tower is UHF, which used to have a 6 meter beam, a 2 meter beam, a 70 centimeter beam, a rotor, antenna switch. Now it has a 2 meter and 70 centimeter ground plane. Everything else is gone, okay? And then of course, you know, climbing is almost eliminated. So 4 to 4, rotors, 7 rotors to 2. Stack matches, 4 to 0. Remember again, stack matches, how do you combine antennas and select whatever? From 4 to 0. 6-pack, that's 2 radios. Which antenna do you want on which radio? So you have 6 inputs going to 2 outputs. So I have 6 antenna inputs coming in. Do I want radio left or radio right? I have maximum versatility. So still have the 6-pack. Antenna switches, 2 to 0. Computers, 2 to 1. I no longer need a network thing, so I'm doing it all in one. Networking, don't need it anymore. Yagis went from 12 to 3. There's a big maintenance reduction. So between rotors, stack matches, and Yagis, huge maintenance reduction. Phase verticals had 2 sets, 160 and 80. I kept the 80s. Inverted V's, same one, and receive antennas, same 10. So to me, huge reduction in stuff. Huge reduction in maintenance, almost no climbing, and it almost works as good as it used to. Good enough. Next page. This is what it used to look like. Here's radio station left, radio station right. This is all the stack match antenna controls. Here's all the rotors and antenna switches, the K3, K3, ACOM. So everything is identical between left radio and right radio. Next page. And here's what it is now. So the screen grew, okay, there's more stuff when I'm running 2 radios. But, you know, left K3, right K3, amplifier, here's the receive antennas, the 2 rotors, okay, here's my antenna selection, and the single out 2 radio control. So now it's all right in front of me. But what ham leaves a desk empty? Next page. Here you go. All right, so what did I have when I was a novice? All right, so here's a DX60 and an HT10 Heathkit transmitter and a VFO with a Heathkit watt meter and a Hammerland HQ129. So this guy's from 1948. These are like 1964. So that's kind of my old novice station, okay? No, doesn't even come close to comparing to what John has, but this is my little piece of the boat anchors, but it works great, really works great. But I did want one more. So here we have the station that I had when I was a general. So I went from the old other Heathkit to a Heathkit HW104A. I just got this guy. This is a remote VFO. I was fortunate enough to find a ham in Canada that had that unbuilt. Unbelievable. So it took me like 5 seconds to say, yeah, I'll pick where I'll buy it. Fine, send it, ship it. Okay, so that's all done, and that's in the room too. So, oh, it was great. I got more pictures and very that too. But yeah, that was fun. Next page. Okay, that'll do it. Any questions? So let me kind of, yeah, so the question on the floor was if I had to pay somebody to put in the crank up tower, what would it cost? The free tower, Dave, cost me about $6,000 between the cement, the antenna, the rotor, you know, the bolts for the base, you know, all of the missile. So my free tower cost me $6,000, you know, shipping and bringing it over. Well, my labor was free, yeah. Except for Bill, he charged me. You know, I think it was what? There was a one coffee and a donut or something. But seriously, for me to do it with no labor was $6,000. So, you know, I don't know, double it, triple it, could be. That tower, okay, US Towers used to sell to hams. People know this because he had one in Florida. Okay, US Towers used to sell to hams. That tower used to be like $5,000 or $6,000. If you go to US Towers now to try to buy that tower, it's over $30,000 to buy that tower. Why? Government. Well, plus freight, yes, but that's not why it's $30,000. The reason why is their main customer is the US government. And you know what's the government? GSA. GSA contract says a vendor cannot sell to the government for more than they sell to any other customer, or flip it around, sell to any customer for less than they sell to the US government. You know, how many do hams buy? How many towers do they have to sell to a ham? Sell one to the government. So hams can't afford US towers anymore. An example, what time is it? 8:30, okay, we're doing good. All right, there are 6 bolts that go to the base. What the tower spec was a 24-inch bolt with a welded on, like giant washer on the bottom and threaded at the top. And the bolt is a 3/4 inch, okay, and it's certain hardening, okay? US Towers wanted $1,500 for those 6 bolts. Howie has a distributor friend of his, okay? WA4PSC Howie. I got 6 bolts, 3.5 feet long, that are J bolts. So instead of a little disc, it's an actual J. So when I put them in, I oriented the J so that whichever way the wind is blowing from, you know, I'd have the resistance of the J pulling against the cement and with the rebar, okay? $450 delivered. US Towers doesn't want to sell to hams anymore. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. So John is complaining about putting JA cards in the ground. It might, and I've got 4 or 5 different ones. I can give you some, you know, from very, you know, Massachusetts, Rochester, Houston here. Any other questions in the room? Any questions on Zoom? Okay, if we could go back to the agenda. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. It's nice to have it done.